Yeah.
Good evening, board members.
Evening.
In my role as board secretary, I'm going to ask that we call the meeting to order. We are, for the public's sake and for the board's sake, obviously, our board president and vice president are both out this evening. So per board policy, it's my counsel that you amend your agenda this evening to select a chair. According to policy BC, when the president of the board, or let me say it again differently, the president of the board shall preside at board meetings and shall rule on questions of order. In the absence of the president, the vice president shall preside. In the absence of both the president and vice president, the attending members shall elect one of their number to preside. And so that's the situation that you find yourselves in this evening. So per that policy, you should be thinking about amending the agenda. I'll start by just doing a roll call and then allow you to proceed as you see according. Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Worthy.
Here.
Ms. Ellis.
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Dr. Knotts.
Here. Floor open for nominations.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Superintendent, I nominate Sarah Ellis to be the presiding officer tonight.
Second.
There's a nomination, and that nomination has been seconded that Ms. Ellis serve as the chair for this meeting this evening. Are there any other nominations?
I move that the nominations be closed on the said name.
Is there a second? Ms. Williams second that. Ms. Clotica, you're capturing all of these.
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favor of making Ms. Ellis the chair of the meeting? It's unanimous. Ms. Ellis, the
Well, this
gavel
is
is yours.
a work session, so hopefully I won't have to do too much. Thank you. All right, so it's time for the superintendent's report. Dr. Means, if you would,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
or I guess we do adopt the
You
agenda.
do need to adopt your agenda.
All right, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
I would like to amend the agenda, not tonight. If I want to have a discussion next week on a topic, would this have to be amended?
No, you do it next week.
You do it next week, you don't do it this week. Okay. Never mind.
But maybe give a heads up.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I just,
want
I
the
want,
agenda.
I want to talk about BBI next week.
BBI.
Right.
Is that one of the new ones? I don't
Clearly.
remember is that one we've already done?
Yes,
So it's in the past?
yeah.
and It's been
It's
approved?
just, I'm just looking for clarification.
Could we take it to policy committee meeting?
I would like to bring it up next week and then we decide to do that. But I mean, I don't know if people really want to revisit the policy.
I don't remember which one that is.
That's the one on board staff relations.
Okay. I think that I think our policy states that policy goes through policy committee and then comes back out to full board. So I'd be happy to add it to the policy committee agenda. Of course, you can request an amendment next week at the meeting, but I think that the appropriate place to rediscuss policy would be back in the policy committee meetings. But I mean, if you can make a suggestion next week and if it's supported by the full board, then we can do it.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Okay, is there a second? The only amendment was to decide who's presiding. I'll second. All in favor? Okay, unanimous vote, thank you. Dr. Means, superintendent's report, please.
We have two 15-minute reports. The first is on our 21st Century Community Learning Centers and After-School Programming Overview. And I asked Ms. Buckley to provide a presentation to the board. Thank you, Ms. Buckley, for being here this evening.
Good evening, board, and Dr. Means. My name is Erin Buckley. I'm the Director of Academic Support and Special Projects in Title I. It's kind of a long title, but I'm going to give you some information on our 21st Century Community Learning Centers and after-school program, and it probably would help if I brought the clicker with me. My objectives tonight are to provide an overview of the current 21st century grants and the elementary after-school program, and to obtain board approval to accept the 3 21st century grants for the 2018-2019 school year, as well as to obtain board approval to submit a 2019 request for proposal for the 21st century grant that are expiring. So I'm going to jump right in and start talking about the 21st century. Our first grant is an elementary school grant, and it's the after-school program is held at H.T. Edwards here in this building next door, and the Smile of Boys and Girls Club. We serve up to 250 students each year. The students are from all 14 elementary schools, and each year our award amount is nearly $350,000. The budget that we would like to bring for board approval at this time is the $349,959. Over the last 5 years, including this year, that grant will have brought in $1.7 million to Clark County to support our elementary school students in our programs. This is the final year of the grant. The middle school grant actually runs a year behind the elementary and high school grants, and it's held at all four middle schools and can serve up to 180 students, 45 at each school. The 2018-2019 award amount is $350,000, and over the 5 years, we will have $1.75 million from that grant. Next year is the final year of that grant, so we have another year before we need to really decide if we need to apply for a new one.
Are they school years or calendar years?
The way I've written it is school year.
Oh, next school year. Sorry,
Yes,
I didn't see
sorry.
that.
Sorry. Yeah, actually I played back and forth, so it can get a little, whether it's fiscal year or school year or calendar year. The high school program is now held at all 3 high schools. Last year, we added Classic City onto the program because we felt like those kids needed after-school services as well. We can serve up to 165 students in high school, 75 at each of the traditional schools, and 15 here at Classic City. As I said, last year was the first year. That award is $889,000 a year, and it's 1.2 over 5 years. This is also the final year for the high school grant. All right, here's some fast facts about 21st century. Federal funds are the primary funding source for these grants. Those 3 grants combined to be $957,000 a year. However, we do use some general funds to support 21st century. About a quarter of the 21st century program manager salary and 100% of the 21st century budget clerk's salary is funded by our local budget. We do pay for a bus to transport students from Barnett Shoals, Whit Davis, and Gaines to the Smile of Boys and Girls Club. And every other school, except for Stroud, because it's on their property, has one stop on a route that goes to the Boys and Girls Club. We also fund, we do not use any of the grant for administrative supplies, and so those supplies come from the general fund. That in total, just to kind of sum it up, that's nearly $100,000 from local funds that to supplement the almost $1 million. All right, that's the 21st century grant. Now I'm going to jump to the elementary after-school program. These are 2 separate programs, but they're both in my department. The elementary ASP program is a parent-funded program that provides childcare and tutoring and homework help at 13 of our elementary schools. All 14 schools are served. Gaines students are served at Barnett Shoals School this year. Almost 1,000 students are in attendance on an average day. It costs parents $6 a day for their first child and $4 a day for every child after that. It's the most affordable child care in Clark County. As I said, each offers help and tutoring. And some programs offer optional enrichment activities, taekwondo, hip hop, dance, things that are really engaging to kids and keeping them active. The PBIS, the positive behavioral intervention supports that are in place during the school day are also in place in the afternoon in those schools. And all CCSD pre-K through 5th grade students are eligible, and those with special needs can attend without any extra fees associated with them. We have a number of parapros and what we call ASP aides that are supporting children almost in a one-to-one basis in some of our schools when they need that. These are not special education funds because this is not a special education daytime program. So there are no general funds budgeted for the elementary ASP program. It's parent funded. Schools can use their undesignated funds, and their undesignated funds are commonly called their Coca-Cola funds, if that makes any sense. We have business partners that donate money to the schools, Coca-Cola and I can't remember the other one that does, but also from the staff funded Sunshine Fund, when the staff members pull together donation funds, those can be used to help support kids in ASP. And Title I actually has a homeless set aside of about $10,000 to $15,000 a year just to pay for ASP tuition for homeless families. This last year we served 105 students, and I want you to notice that we're at over half that, and we're 2 months in. So it's 64 students at this point. The Georgia Department of Early Learning, DeKalb, provides tuition support and after-school care for, and as of October 1st, DeKalb is paying for 40 students across the county, and there are 11 that are in transition or for the application process. We will have more as the year goes on. We get probably 5 to 10 every month. So those are those two programs. That's how they're funded. And this handout that you all were given, yep, she's handing it out now. This has a lot more detailed information on the data, on the success of these programs, and more specifically on the funding. Are there any questions? Yes.
Yes, I know that in terms of ASP, we had some, I guess, informal discussions about last year about the lack of rigorousness of the program.
Yes.
What has changed? What are we doing differently this year to ensure that the students are engaged
well, we are trying to engage, and we did take a survey last year to make sure that all the principals had the same types of procedures as far as classroom management type skills, and to find out what their programming is. These schools have different homework policies, so it's been difficult to come to terms with how to measure the effect of the homework help, but we're working on that. As well, it's also difficult to measure the effect of SEL at the schools. Right now, it sounds a little bit like I'm making an excuse, but part of my salary is to cover 21st century, ASP programs, but I'm also over another bunch of things. And what I'd really like to see is some really comprehensive support at the district level so that we can really make a difference.
I mean, specifically, if I could maybe specifically help, is that I know that I got a number of complaints last year from parents at one particular school because they were like sitting. A lot of time was spent sitting around the cafeteria table, you know, and I think Dr. Means was trying to get at that. Why that was happening. I think Dr. Means, you were expressing some concern too last year.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm just trying to see what we, you know, have we altered the staff? Have we given more guidelines? I know you're saying what we need to do, but what have we already put in place?
The staff is changed every year, and the best thing that we can do for our students is to have our actual school staff working with their kids in the afternoon. rather than trying to hire people from outside the district. They know our kids, they know they're trained in classroom management and teaching. And so we've tried to increase the number of people in the schools that's doing that. It varies from school to school. So, and we're also working on clarifying how we're providing vendor services in the schools, which are the more enriching activities like art and taekwondo.
So do we have an idea of how many, I don't mean a hog, but how many of our kids are kind of like engaged with these vendors? Because I heard very positive things about those vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have how many vendors are engaged?
I don't have that data. Sorry.
What's the matrix that we're going to use to evaluate?
One of the things that we've discussed is trying to compare the number of students who are completing ASP or homework, number of ASP students versus non-ASP students that are completing homework. But as I said, this can be a bit of a challenge. That honestly, I'm working really hard to try to find the time to support that. And we're still finding that.
So using this time for homework is one of the purposes of it?
It was found to be a need in the 2009 community summit, that parents and students found that to be a need. Yes.
So in the ASP programs, and I have children who have attended, and they don't go very often because I often get feedback from them that it's kind of mean, and you know. So anyway, it is a little bit bonkers. I've seen in other districts, and maybe other schools are doing this, and maybe the school my kids go to are doing this. I'm gonna walk down that room, but they have things like tubs of Legos and tubs of like different things that you can sit at different tables and just play. You know, more
Games
than
and-
just
and
like homework help.
constructive
It seems
play.
like it's homework help, play outside, come back in and watch a movie. That's what it seems like to me. So is there some other? And if it's raining, it's just homework help, watch a movie. And is there are any of those kinds of?
Many of the programs do have quite a supply closet of games and
specific?
Legos, and that was one of the reasons last year when we opened the 3 programs in Gaines, Fowler, and Stroud, that we ensured that they had money to buy those types of supplies so that they could have strategic games and they could do those types of activities. But what we really need to do is get a really hardcore parent survey to see what you all want in the programs so that we can determine what to put in there.
That'd be great, like even to hand to the parents as they pick up their children, just when you sign your kid out, fill this out, because it seems like buying tubs of Legos is cheaper
Than buying extra people.
extra people, you know, I mean, if you,
Yeah.
and just, you know, the age old thing, if you keep them engaged, then,
Mhm.
you know, you don't have to keep them disciplined, right? Because they're engaged. So, anyway, I just didn't know if that was something, and I'm
I will
not trying
make
to
a point
throw
to get a
a
survey out
school over
there.
the bus,
No,
they may have that, I don't.
I will, the survey is definitely in order. Yes, sir.
This kind of follows up maybe, for the middle school scorecard results.
Mhm.
The goals include unconventional instruction through integrated STEAM-based learning. I was just wondering what we've been doing to meet that description.
We have, we actually have some robotics courses in the schools, which that's probably the most STEAM-driven thing that we do. The original grant called for a Saturday program where there would be a makerspace on Saturdays, and people would come and the kids would come and the parents would come and make things and have big projects. We had to get permission from the state to stop those programs because we couldn't get kids to come on Saturdays. Angela, can you tell me what some of the other STEAM activities are in the middle schools?
Coding,
Oh, coding.
arts. They have a lot of arts and crafts.
And one of the schools actually had an interest in, this might not seem like a STEAM activity, but it really is because of the chemicals and the processes behind it. But they wanted to learn how to do cosmetology, is that the
Yes.
best way to say it? And there's actually a program out there that we could train kids how to deal with those chemicals and heat and all of those things so that they're not burning each other's hair.
Are the arts integrated with the science?
Yes. Yes.
One of the program coordinator at Coyle, where is Samantha?
Yes.
At Coyle is an art teacher, so she makes sure that that gets integrated.
In terms of activities, is also like organized outside activities expected, or, you know, obviously if the weather is good, but is that something that is part, or is it just, because that was
You mean
something
like
else.
tournament type
Well,
stuff?
some
or-
type of like organized,
They do have some
because
free
the kids have
recess
been in
time.
school all day and.
I think that varies from school to school. They do go outside and they play. We've had some parents really express that what they want is time for their children to basically have play dates at the school because they don't get to see each other outside of school.
Right.
So there is a supervised playground going on. We do have, in some of our Title I schools right now, we have PlayWorks, which is a program that provides a coach from AmeriCorps to come during the recess time during the school day to help lead activities. And I'm hoping that we can translate some of that into the after-school programs.
That'd be really good. They were at J Street and it was really a nice program. And then they picked leaders out of like fifth grade. They had fifth grade students help lead activities with the younger kids and things like that. And if you push
If,
that into the.
if we could, right now we don't have the funding to do that in the after-school program, but if I could translate it from the school day into the after-school program, that would be amazing.
All right, go ahead, Sarah. These metrics that you listed on the second page, these are from last year.
They're, actually, the metrics for the entire grant are in there, so these have been updated for this year. This is, there's 2015 data, 2016 data, 2000 collected, but this most recent is what we finished for at the end of last year. The reason I said that is it looks very much like the report from last year because we revised and updated the report.
There were quite a few that were not met, so are they being strengthened for this year?
Yes, there's an improvement plan on this page that we're working on. Even though in the high school, we did not meet our math goal, but we did grow in math. We did improve in math, so we're going to continue the professional learning for math. We've also continued the literacy and numeracy efforts in the elementary school. So we've connected with our curriculum coordinators to provide professional learning to the staff of 21st Century so that they can implement strategies that are aligned with the strategy for the school day.
I do know we're bouncing you back and forth, and I apologize for that, but on the after-school program, and maybe it's a question for Dr. Means, is it possible to obtain, maybe before the end of the year, something kind of like what each school, what they're doing to engage, and maybe a kind of a defined set of metrics about what we're expecting or evaluating in terms of these programs? I mean, because we do want to evaluate them.
I agree.
And I know it's going to take some time.
That is something we're discussing and we're trying to get it in place. Yes.
So is the grant limiting the number of students, or students are not participating based on other things?
The
Because-
21st Century Grant, the number of,
Well, this is after school program.
See, we're talking about two different
I
things.
know,
Yeah.
I know, but still, I'm just looking at this and the participation, and some of this is,
the after-school program has about 1,000 students, and it's parent decisions on whether they want to participate or not, because it is parent funded.
are people not aware of games? Because I heard someone say the other day there was no after-school program at games, and I'm not sure they knew.
We did make it very clear to the people we actually had a table during open house that, when they come into the beginning of the school year, to sign people up. Our intention was to start at Gaines if we possibly could, but we didn't get enough interest to have a sustainable program there. So we decided to take a short ride over to Barnett Shoals so that they can participate in the program there. Gaines has an average of about 35 students a day that regularly attend the program at Barnett Shoals, and they need about 50 people to keep a program going there because of the rate of pay.
So Stroud is not sustainable, or Stroud?
Stroud still has a program. Stroud and Fowler and Gaines were all added last year. Those programs are smaller in number, but the parents are very consistent in paying, so we're able to recoup the fees to pay the staff.
Any other questions?
Just to follow up on Carol's, so the limiting factor here is really the parental participation. It's,
For ASB,
yes. That was your
is
question.
that what your question was?
It just seems
It's-
Really?
It's low, right?
it's really trouble with that stuff.
Are we talking about the 21st century?
No, the ASP program at some of our elementary schools have 30 to 38.
Where y'all see the numbers? I'm blind.
On the back.
It's on the last page,
Last page.
on the first side of the last page.
But I have to imagine that it's economically driven for parents to be able to pay.
I think there are different situations, our neighborhoods are all very unique. And if there's someone at home, if there's an older sibling at home or a parent at home, then it doesn't make sense for them to pay to have childcare and eat.
Ms. Ellis, those are self-funded programs. They're outside the general fund. They have to make a profit to work to stay eligible.
I know. Well, I think I know. But Ms. Buckley said that, it takes about 50 kids to kind of break even on it. We've got 4 schools that are under 50. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have programs there. I was just asking that.
Those schools typically have a lot of the community staffing it, the college students who don't get paid as our parapros and our teachers do. They're just,
The costs.
their costs are lower.
Seems like a good project for the local school governance teams to take a look at this as well.
I agree.
It does. Because I can say too, like with LSGTs, you've got community organizations, like at Chase, Canopy walks over and grabs a handful of kids who can do free Canopy classes as part of their kind of ASP, and they welcome back. I think there's a yoga program or whatever. So maybe some of the other, if the LSGTs can get some involvement from them,
I think that's
local
a great idea.
folks around. All right.
Yes, sir.
I do know, and this goes back years ago when I had a finger around this. It used to be very, vendors used to complain how difficult it was.
Mhm.
That's probably no longer the case. I mean, once you.
Well,
run-
recently, actually, in the committee for the board policy committee, we discussed making the when I came in, I made the application probably about 30 or 40% easier. And we discussed making it even easier than that and not having them answer questions about what their attendance policies and things like that were, because that got a little confusing when we can just say that they would agree to our policies. That would make it a lot easier for them. So I think it's easier now than it used to be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
may I make a suggestion that we bring back a report to Board of Education in June related to 21st Century Community Learning Centers and after-school programming?
Yeah.
Specifically around what metrics were met this school year, and also how are we ensuring that each school, regardless of the ability of a school community to pay for said services for their children, how those services are being provided to those school communities.
Um,
It continues to be a concern. If you remember last year, it was, I was startled. I was legitimately startled that we did not have after-school programming in 3 of our schools that have some of the highest needs. And for a community, a school district, to that claims that we're about equity, to say yes, but ASP is about if the parents can pay for it or not. And we know that those are communities where the parents may not be able to pay. That doesn't mitigate their need for after school programming for those families. In fact, if you are in that stratosphere from a socioeconomic standpoint, you probably need after school programming more. So I've asked Ms. Buckley, I've asked Dr. Nolan we've got to get serious about this work and really have a systemic approach for every school. So I'm asking if we can place that on our June agenda to make sure that the board and the community has some type of update on what progress has been made this year. There's just a lot of things we can do. You mentioned PlayWorks. If we can find a way to have PlayWorks type of, I don't know if everyone knows what PlayWorks is, but PlayWorks is it's a nonprofit organization that actually have trained individuals who go out to the playgrounds and help young people learn how to engage with one another and lead play games and eventually create leadership and leaders among the children that will then make sure that bullying and other type of behaviors that unfortunately happen on playgrounds are not happening. It's continued to expand. Last year we had 3 elementary schools with PlayWorks. I think this year we're up to 6. But why can't we, to Mr. Davis's point, why can't we have PlayWorks with our after-school programming as well? Actually, it's a little more tenuous with after-school programming because it's just legitimately go play. Where if you have some type of PlayWorks approach to it, where there's someone who is navigating and helping the young people understand how to engage with one another, that would be proper. Because with after-school programming, you don't have your classroom teacher who's supervising you. It may be someone else, and so your propensity of maybe stepping out of line is higher in after-school programming. I say all this to say I would just request if the board would be willing to listen to our update in terms of how we're going to tighten this up and make sure that there's a systemic approach to this work with not only ASP but our 21st century community learning centers. I would appreciate the opportunity. Dr. Nolan, Ms. Buckley, I think we have work to do.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
can talk away about it. Not everything you want on the agenda. No, I think it's really, I appreciate that. And I do remember a time, probably when I was first on the board, when there were all kinds of different things, entities, businesses that came into, I specifically remember it was at Clark Metal, and they had like Good Dirt and bouncy houses and like different days with all this stuff. And I thought that was part of the 21st Century Learning Grant, or maybe it was a different grant that we lost.
It might have been the 21st Century Grant prior to this grant. There is a history of it. We are actually on our 3rd elementary and high school grant and our 2nd middle school grant. So
it was really robust, and I do remember when it ended, and it was because grant funding ran out. But it was a really I would have wanted to stay after school for sure. And I know as a parent, and I have a flexible job schedule, but if you don't, you can't get your children to all of the special things that are enriching and awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard enough when you do have a flexible job schedule. And so it was neat to see dance or whatever. And I know we've already had that conversation and gone down that road too, but coming into the schools, I thought that was really awesome. So,
I agree.
thank you very much. All right, number 2, career, technical, and agricultural education overview. Dr. Means.
Dr. Ramirez is our leader of career, technical, agricultural education in the Clark County School District, and we've asked him to give an overview of our program in that space. Dr. Ramirez.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the school board, Dr. Means, fellow colleagues, members of the public, and those who are joining us from the comforts of your homes. The purpose for tonight's presentation is to give you an overview of our career technical agricultural education program, and in particular, the course offerings at the middle schools, at the high school level, and the extent to which there is coherence or lack of all those courses in preparing students to access the pathway programs that we offer here at the Career Academy. We do not have as a department our own mission and vision statement, so we do follow the district's mission and vision in terms of our objectives. One of the things that when we consider the size and scope of our CTAE program, where we're currently serving 4,022 students in the program, it becomes quite evident that the priorities of the district become very important for us to also use as indicators in terms of the success of our program for our students. In particular, priority number 3, organizational effectiveness, and priority number 6, educational equity, magnify in importance because this coming year, we are due for a site monitoring visit by the state, which occurs every 5 years. That visit had been scheduled for this year, but they delayed it by a year. And I do not anticipate that visit being changed beyond the fall of 2019. But for us, for this year, the issue of taking a look at the coherence of the program that we offer becomes quite important, as you will see later on in the presentation. Let me draw your attention to our middle school curricular offerings. As you see, we have 4 middle schools, and one of the things that becomes quite obvious, especially for someone who's just looking at this, I'm almost into my first 100 days in overseeing CTAE. But one of the things that it becomes quite evident when we look at our middle school offerings is that agriculture and family consumer science are the signature programs for Clark County Schools. If we come away with something, or with anything at Clark County Schools, that our middle schools are very solidly invested and funded in agriculture and family consumer science, which leaves very little growth for other areas that might be explored. But again, that to me seems to be a decision that have been made on behalf of the district in terms of solidifying those programs. I want to draw your attention to 2 new initiatives that are happening at the middle school this year. One is Coyle Middle School. Coyle Middle School actually this year, with the initiative of the principal and the site-based team, initiated a new pathway in business and computer science. All the other 4 middle schools offer agriculture and family consumer science. So I am very excited to see that 3rd pathway being offered at Coyle, especially a pathway that feeds into Cedar Shoals. Another new initiative, which I'm very pleased about, is BHL, where the teacher there and with the support of the principal started a high school agriculture class for 8th grade students. I went and paid a visit to that teacher. I can tell you that she is excited. She is thrilled to have been given the opportunity to teach a course, a high school course, to the 8th grade students, and I'm expecting great things to happen from that initiative. When we look at our high school curricular offerings, we see that there are programs that are unique to Cedar Shoals and then programs that are unique to Clark Central, and then programs that are offered at both schools. In particular, I want to draw your attention to the program and automotive design and maintenance, where that program is only offered at Cedar Shoals. And the question then becomes, what if a student at a Central High School who wants to access that program? So the question of access to opportunities in that particular pathway becomes an important question for us to ask and for us to consider moving forward in the future.
Before you go on,
Yes.
Dr. Ramirez, board members and community members, we're going to update this presentation. I've asked that we break these courses up into sub-departments within the CTAE department. So it's not enough just to say CTAE overall. So for example, you'll note at Cedar, there's marketing and business, there's agricultural, there's mechanical engineering, but then there's programs like workforce development that and I know that was a question that Mr. Davis posed. We'll break this into sub-departments within each of the CTAE departments because there's specialties within these departments, and we'll update this presentation by tomorrow. I wanted to let you know that from my perspective, when you're able to see these courses from a sub-department perspective, it gives more highlights and gives you more perspective on what we're offering to students and what we're not offering. So
that would be just the courses underneath the heading.
Right. So if you take a look at Cedar Shoals, you'll see that you'll note, I mean, once we break it into the subdivisions, that there may be more courses being offered in terms of a certain area or interest versus one school versus the other. And so I think you're going to want to see that as a board.
For clarity, Dr. Nance, did you say you were planning to send that out tomorrow?
We'll send that out. We'll send out this presentation to the board with that update on slide number 5 and 6 tomorrow. What we'll actually do is we'll have a slide that's just for Cedar Shoals, one for just for Central, and then one where you can see where both schools are offering the same courses. Thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
You're welcome.
Dr. Ramirez.
When we looked at we went through the exercise of actually looking at each of the high school course offerings, the middle school and high school course offerings, and then aligning those course offerings to what extent do those course offerings prepare students to access the programs that we offer at the Career Academy. We found business and computer science that is supported at Cedar Shoals, and then supported through the Career Academy in accounting. But we only found 4 courses in all the courses that we offer in the district that is strategically aligned to the career path, to the pathways that we offer at the Career Academy. You see, for example, also in family consumer science, all 4 of our middle schools offer that as a program, but there's no place for those students to go to in the high schools because we don't offer a pathway that continues that progression. We do offer the program here at the Career Academy, but it's not offered at the comprehensive high schools. This is a graphic organizer that really combines all our middle school program offerings and our high schools and the Career Academy. Let me explain a bit about the colors. The yellow are programs that we do not offer. We currently are not offering those programs. The ones in gray and white are programs that we currently offer. And if we look at where there's a common color across middle, high school, and middle and high schools, then you can see that those programs prepare students at the middle schools for them to continue in a pathway at the high school. And then depending on what side of the city you're on, either east side or west side, to what extent is there a clear pathway from middle school to high schools to access those programs. So we can start, for example, on agriculture. Agriculture is a program that's offered at all 4 of our middle schools, and students from both middle schools can continue in that pathway at each of the high schools. Central and Cedar Shores offer some type of agricultural program. When we look at business and computer science, which is new again to BHL, to Coral this year, there's not a program at Clark Central, but there is a program at Cedar Shores, and that program can actually lead to a pathway here at the Career Academy in accounting. Students, we find, because they integrate business and computer, sometimes they make a choice to continue with just computer or to continue in business. When we look, for example, at family and consumer science that we looked at before, it's offered at the middle schools, but it's not offered at either of the comprehensive high schools. But we do have a program here at the Career Academy in the culinary arts. Another pathway that begins the high schools. Both high schools offer engineering and technology, and then we also offer it here also at the academy as well in terms of some of the high school courses. We have, maybe we can set up opportunity to open the link. Some additional resources for you in terms of some data, in terms of enrollments, in terms of the number of students, is broken down by gender, broken down by ethnicity. We both for the high school courses, as well as the middle school courses. And then we also have a tab for Perkins 5, has some new definitions of what is considered a special population. We were able to get data on at least 3 of those special populations that we obviously need to comply with in terms of looking at number of students that are accessing our program from the special populations, special education, English language learners, and students who are homeless. And lastly, we have the scorecard. At the last monitoring visit, which occurred in 2013, there was a finding from that visit, and that finding resulted in some recommendations and suggestions. And the setting of specific targets that we have to meet based on those 8 metrics. These 8 metrics are metrics that are developed, actually came from the United States Department of Education, and every state is held accountable in supporting districts in meeting those metrics. The S in the code 1S1, the S stands for secondary level. They have similar metrics for colleges. In that case, we have P for post-secondary. But when you look at how do we fare from year to year, this is information that we have to report to the State Department of Education in terms of are we meeting those targets. For the 2016-2017 year, you can see where there's an adjusted performance target for us to meet and the actual performance achieved, and we met 7 of those 8 indicators in 2016-17. In one of those indicators, we actually surpassed the state results. These are some of the definitions in terms of what each indicator refers to. And I believe that concludes my presentation, and I'm open to answer any questions you might have. Yes, Mr. Davis.
One question that I've got is in terms of, industry certification
Yeah.
of some sort. Are we looking for, because I know that's easier said than done, but is there a way to add to our chart in some way about if a student completes a pathway, if there's any type of industry certification they can receive?
Yes, there are actually two types of certifications they can receive. One is the actual industry certification by an end of pathway assessment, which signifies that the student has the knowledge and also the skill set to be certified in a particular industry. Something that's new this year from the state of Georgia, they just released a career readiness diploma seal. And students that meet certain criteria will then receive a seal that they can affix to the diploma. And that signifies to the employers that in fact that student has achieved a certain level of proficiency in terms of skills, employability skills, to be ready for the world of work.
Can we add a column that indicates that? Because it's probably not true in all fields yet. I would
Okay.
think.
It's new, it's released this year, so it's new for this year. We can begin to award it with this graduating class. Yeah, but it's something that we definitely want to keep track of.
But what about, go ahead.
I can recall when industry certification was brought to the school district, at the time it was not career technical education, it was called vocational education. But anyway, with industry certification, and you described it perfectly, but with the skill set, the employability skills, and the litany of things there, at least when a student graduated from high school, that could get them in the door at least for an interview. Is that still true?
Absolutely. But one of the things that enhances the opportunity for students to gain those skills is work-based learning,
Yes.
where we currently have 100 of our students actually working in the fields of their choice, actually working at a particular job site, learning and interacting and really developing those critical skills that would allow them to remain employed. A recent presentation that I heard from was that one of the major reasons why new hires lose their jobs is because of employability skills. Not being able to keep time, to manage their time, not having late, and those soft skills that are really so critical to being successful at your job. Yes.
Could you go back, the three slides?
Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3.
No, go back to the data.
I'm sorry, the data, the data sets. Yes.
It would be the, not one.
Middle school, Perkins,
I
and
think
the scorecard.
Maybe it was, well, I'll just ask the question.
Yeah, well, the scorecard. We can do the scorecard.
This is really good, very informative. You said that, there were some findings,
Yes.
and I was wondering, whatever slide I was, that's the slide. Were the findings in those areas, or what were some of the findings?
So some of the findings related to program offerings that we needed to increase students' access to career technical education. The findings in terms of increasing students who actually earn a industry credentialing. One of the things that is also a recommendation for us, continues to be, is that we need to do a much better job in ensuring that students that take their end of pathway course It's usually 3 courses. Right now, students don't feel compelled to actually have to take an end of pathway assessment. Very similar to the AP dilemma. Students that take the AP courses, they take the course, but not all students want to take the exam to score a 3 to get college credit. They go through the process without taking the exam. But we're facing a similar dilemma in terms of career technical education, where we want one of my priorities is to ensure that every student that goes through a pathway, at the end of that pathway, that student then take a end of pathway assessment because it comes with a credential. Those are some of the findings in terms of that report.
I have some questions about the funding for this.
Yes.
Because there's some details I just want clarification on. So, in the frequently asked questions, 1A said that total general fund dollars investment is 1.9 million, something like that.
Yeah, 1.8.
Yeah, 1.894 million. And then on question 3, it said, is the extended day grant sufficient or will general revenue funds be needed? And so just clarify that for me.
Where the sources
Yeah.
The first set of numbers, the 1.8, it's a combination that's dedicated specifically for instruction. And that's a combination of teacher salaries, in teachers of CTAE, and also the dollars that are allocated at the local level to support instruction at the schools. The question number 3 is on the extended day. That is one of the grants, one of the state grants that we receive, and that's to support teachers working after school 1 hour per day to support work-based learning and or student activities through CTSOs. And then the district, we have, depending on the funding that we get, usually the state provides 54% of what we ask. The process is one where in the month of May, teachers who want to work extended day submit a program of work. The director reviews it, either approves it, denies it, or approves it at half time, where a teacher can work not 190 days, but can work 95 days and only get compensated for half that time. So what some districts actually do is, because the state only funds us at the 54% level, they only award the half time. That way it doesn't incur an additional cost on the local budget. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, partly. Now, following up, then, from our budget perspective, we should be thinking about our budget. Is this an item that we need to prioritize to find additional general revenue funds to be able to do what we want to do in this area?
Depends to what extent we want to support after-school programs with teachers working work-based learning and after-school programs. The state generally gives us the funding that we get is usually sufficient for us to not have to incur an additional cost in the local budget if we approve the teachers working half-time. Once we approve a teacher working full-time, then that supplemental income, salary, will have to come from the local budget.
And how much would that be in total?
Well, the funding that we got this year is 21,746 in total. And we currently have, I believe, 6 teachers whose salary of full-time will exceed that amount.
You mentioned, well, Dr. Knox brought this to the floor on extended day. And what you mentioned was that extended day, you talked about extended day after school.
Yes.
What about during school? Because when I was in the system, you had some teachers teaching 6 periods per day. And when you do that, you have to pay them extended pay. Do we have any of those programs now?
I know of this one teacher whose schedule has a 6 periods in her day. But I'm not aware of any other teacher in the district that actually is teaching 6 periods in CTAE. But that allows her very little time, really, to then have activities for her to support any work with students. For her, it would have to be an after-school program. If she wants to have an after-school club with kids.
As Dr. Knox brought forward, and you mentioned the 1.8, I've seen that, you mentioned 21,000, et cetera. Any of this money is the Carl Perkins money? Are you familiar with
No,
the Carl Perkins?
I am.
Okay.
This year we only have 2 funding streams from Perkins, which is the program improvement grant for $155,000, and then we get a $13,000 allocation to support professional development. But that's a pass through to the resource network for CTAE. That money goes directly to the resource network to support the professional development of all educators across all Georgia. We have no option but to join. The part of the condition of receiving those funds in Georgia is to be able to join the network, and it's an outstanding network. I must add.
But the funds are supporting CTAE.
The funds are supporting CTAE, but our allocation from Perkins this year is $155,000.
Well, that's way down.
It's very low. It's about $20,000 less than last year.
On our work-based learning, and I'm gonna call them internship, apprenticeships. I'm assuming we're heading in that direction instead of just, are they purposely tied in to the curriculum that we're offering? I mean, is there a conscious tie-in, or is it just kind of random?
There's a tie-in to the career of interest that the student has. If the student is interested in the medical field, then we do our best to place that student in the medical field environment.
So they would be be on the path to medical
In the
field.
pathway, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think one thing that would really help me is if we were to, because you did a great job aligning the middle school with the high school in terms of coursework.
Okay.
If it was tied in a little bit more in terms of both in terms of certification and also in terms of these apprenticeships and internships and work-based learning. I mean, so there's a continuity there.
Okay.
If at all possible.
Absolutely.
And are we only talking about state certification on the diploma? I mean, certificate, yeah.
Yes, that's a new initiative
Okay.
from
Is there
the.
anything in private industry that what we offer that students can earn within our program or not?
What I'm aware of, the end of pathway assessments, which are industry, credentialings. I'm not aware of any other entity that awards certificates in the way that the Georgia Department of Education is now awarding the career-ready diploma seats. It will have to be students actually completing a pathway and taking an end of pathway
Are we doing it
assessment.
at the Career Academy? Is that where that's?
Actually, the end of pathway assessments happens across all comprehensive schools.
Okay, I guess so. Okay.
Once a student completes a pathway, that student, and for the vast majority of pathways, there is an end of pathway assessment that the student can take to earn the industry certification.
By the state.
No, by the entity that administers the assessments.
Oh, okay.
It will be like the College Board
Right.
administering tests. Then if the student passes, they earn. So similar, there are several testing agencies and career technical education
Gotcha.
that the students can take assessments.
If that could be on the chart too, so I'm just trying to wrap my mind about how comprehensive where our offerings are in terms of kind of all the way, I'm trying to get a gauge of, when, how many students have the opportunity, if they so choose, to get training along with their academics in high school, get some work experience in the trade that they selected, have something that they can actually take to an employer when they graduate. And so it just, in my mind, it's just joint. But I know that's where we're trying to go with it.
Yes.
Are we still giving well, it used to be the vocational seal, but I'm quite sure it's probably said the career technical education seal now. We still doing that seal on students, high school diplomas when they're earning?
I have not heard of that seal.
No.
No.
We don't do that. You mentioned the seals earlier, that's why I asked that question.
Yes, the Georgia Department of Education this year released what they call the Career Ready Diploma Seal. They have other seals
Okay.
in other fields, but for them, it's new career technical education. Students can now earn a Career Ready Diploma Seal.
I got you.
My question is for probably Dr. Nee.
Yes, ma'am.
When we were talking about, when you explained about the findings, is it possible for the board to have a narrative or a list of the findings? So when this presentation is presented again, the board can have an objective look of the areas of improvement?
When you say the findings,
I was repeating what he said.
Yes.
so what are you seeking? What information are you
I was
seeking?
trying to see what the findings were.
Dr. Ramirez, do you mind going back to the findings that you referenced earlier?
Yes, I have a.
Yeah, you went over it.
There's only one.
Let me see if I.
If we can just
I think it's
project
one.
it again, that would be helpful.
Well, this is the actual report.
Okay.
But hard. Let me just go back here. So when the GADOE comes and does a monitoring visit, they look at various indicators.
Mhm.
Or is the program being successful? But one of those, some of the indicators they have to look at, because it is actually indicators from the U.S. Department of Education, and is the movement toward accountability, toward making sure that we are results oriented. Based on that premise, then every single state has to report to the U.S. Department of Education how well they're supporting school districts in students achieving these 8 performance standards. So this is part of the overall recommendations. The monitoring visit came in, found 45 recommendations, and then we as a district began to then develop strategies that would lead us to being in compliance and meeting the recommendations. And we have achieved, as of this October, 67% of those recommendations.
So the report that you might have done before I got here showed what those recommendations were? That's
No,
not-
I have not made that public, no, and I just got my hands on this actually this week.
And that's what I was asking.
It's new to me this week.
That's what I was asking.
We'll make comment on what.
Definitely follow up.
Being in compliance, that you talked about a few minutes ago, and I talked about the Carl Perkins Act, there are various other acts, but anyway, my point is this. This is how Congress award that money. If schools are not in compliance with things, sometimes money is cut, you don't get as much, etc. Because when you look at career technical education, what used to be vocational education, what's the purpose of it? You're preparing young people for the workforce. That's what they look at. That's what the senators for the congressmen. That's what they look at in terms of awarding funds.
Yes.
You were going back to the slideshow. Slide 5. Yep. It should say CTAE courses by school. So this is what I referenced earlier. I was able to complete it well. Dr. Ramirez, I was paying attention. But,
Thank you.
this is what I was referencing. If you take a look at the courses offered at each of the high schools, the purple identifies courses that are offered at both, and the grayed out courses are the ones that are high school specific. And so you'll see there's certain areas of offerings that is unique to certain schools. We offer graphic design across the board. We offer workforce development and employability skills across the board in terms of internships and work-based learning. But you'll see mechanical engineering is offered at one school where it's not offered at another. You'll see that computer science is grouped as a CTAE offering at one school where it's not offered at another. And then even when you go into the agricultural subdivision of a certain school, there's certain courses offered at one school that's not offered at another, which is okay. I think one of the things that the board and the community should know is that I've asked Dr. Ramirez and Mr. Harris to take a look at what are we offering. To Dr. Knox's point, if we're trying to set young people up so they are employable after high school, if they choose not to pivot to the military or 2 or 4 year post-secondary educational option, then we have to create a pathway for them from a CTAE standpoint. I think the timing of this presentation is also good because it's really critical for us to know, and you heard this last month from Mr. Lawrence Harris, that what's offered at the Athens Community Career Academy that does not impact our CTAE offerings within the school system. And just because we have a career academy doesn't mean that we are exempt from making sure that we have a robust CTAE program. So I think that's where you were going with the question, Dr. Knotts, and I think it's an appropriate one that I've asked Dr. Ramirez and Mr. Harris, Mr. Michael Harris to continue to look at. For me, when we were digging into this work and getting prepared for this presentation, that's the most telling of all the slides in terms of the opportunities. But I'm not going to call it courses, the opportunities that are offered at one school versus the other. And then I think, as Dr. Ramirez tried to talk about a little bit earlier, how that then feeds into the Career Academy is a totally different conversation. But the first step, we have to take care of our own courses and our own opportunities. And when you see the differences, I think it's something that requires more attention.
Yes.
Yeah, on the workplace development and employability skills, do we have, these are individual, that's an individual course?
Students are given credit, yes,
Okay.
for work-based learning. And there's a set of criteria that they have to meet. They have to submit work on a regular basis. That work gets graded. There's also visits at the job sites to see if in fact they are progressing in their placements. So there's a set of requirements that students must meet in order to earn that credit.
Okay, so that's all part of the work-based learning.
Yes,
component.
yes.
So
And then some of those work-based learning actually come with monetary compensation. So they're actually getting paid.
Okay. So for students because employability skills are big, it's a big issue. And so for kids who are, for whatever reason, are not doing work-based learning, but they're on these career pathways, I'm assuming that CTAE career pathways, that the instructors in the various fields are trying to work on those soft skills as well as the content.
It's actually part of the curriculum.
Okay.
every CTE core, every CTE pathway, the first course they take, the first standard that teachers address is employability skills.
This one is real. I mean, this one, I feel like if I ask this question, it's like asking, how come we're not teaching how to do wagon wheels? But are we, we used to have classes in the middle school not too long ago where kids actually learned the keyboard. And then those went away. And there were a lot of folks who were kind of scratching their heads on that. It was good to see that Coral is bringing in a business class. Is that part of their class, or I mean, where are we at with keyboarding skills? I mean, is that just, am I even raising it like saying, what about building wagons? I mean, do people even teach that anymore? That's the thing I use the most.
I'm not aware that we teach it in Clark County. It's a separate course. It's actually embedded in the work they do, but I'm not aware that we have a course specifically designed to teach keyboarding.
That's, keyboarding went away in Clark County School District years ago before I retired in 2003. And I think it went away when they started bringing in the new technology, et cetera, and whatnot. But I hear what Mr. Davis is saying, but it was declared obsolete.
So that's how I type.
Well, it went away.
I mean, is that across the country? I mean, just no one teaches keyboarding anymore?
I know, I'm familiar with the state of Rhode Island, and I know that we stopped teaching keyboarding there a long time ago.
I think it's one of those things that you can find at online, like whether or not kids or people are going to do it. It's something you can just do on a Saturday. You can sit and practice your little
Oh yeah,
keyboard.
kids do that.
I'm with you, Greg. I'm so thankful I know how to type, and I am a fast typer, and I love that, and I think it's great. And but I haven't seen it taught anywhere in a long time. And I learned it in high school, and it's a valuable skill.
I learned it in middle school, and it's the only thing I
But all our kids are like this.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
super fast.
It's like writing in the third grade. That's
handwriting
not taught
person.
anymore. Handwriting. Handwriting is
That's something like
went away.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And your presentation. We are moving down the agenda to information items. The first being the early Head Start and Head Start Policy Council meeting and minutes reports. I don't remember exactly how Jared has done this in the past, but are there any questions on that information item? How about this loss report? Any questions on that information item? And then we have the Career Academy report, but in our board docs, there isn't anything loaded. So is that coming next week or?
For which?
Or is there not one? The Career Academy report,
I believe there'll be one next week.
be one next week. Okay.
While we're on that,
That's great.
I'll state anything who's on the board of the Career Academy. Appreciate your being with us tonight.
Madam Chair, the board of the Athens Community Career Academy, due to the leadership of their chair, has designated a member from their board to attend each of our working sessions and board meetings, business meetings. So I really appreciate the Career Academy board taking a greater interest in the governance component of the school system. So, again, thank you.
The partnership is critical. So thank you. And then the last is the Parent Advisory Board report. Will that be a written? Is that a written?
The Parent Advisory Board has made a request very similar to the Athens Community Career Academy, where there's at least one, if not two, board-on-board meetings with this Board of Education. And so I'm working with their chair, Chet Boyd, to schedule, to start looking at calendars and ensuring that they're able to push in and meet with the board. There is no report month from the board rep that attended, which was Ms. Davis.
Okay, all right, well, maybe she'll have one next week.
Correct.
And then we are moving on down to minutes of the previous meetings, which we will approve next week. Are there any, we had two, we had a work session and then a regular meeting. Are there any questions on those minutes? Thank you, Ms. Vodka, for your great minutes. And then the financial report for July and August are the next agenda item. Are there any questions on the July 2018 or the August 2018 monthly financials? All right, moving on down, we have policy, the policies that will be posted for public review for 4 weeks. They are mostly human resources policies, but there are 2 at the bottom that are B policies back to board operations, and have generated some comments from several members of our board, and I'm thinking that we should probably take those back to policy committee meeting before putting them out for comment for 4 weeks. We have some good conversations that need to be had, and I think we need to pull those back. So if there's no objection to that, I guess we'll vote on that next week, right, to pull those back to policy.
That's good.
That will probably be my recommendation, given the email questions and discussion. And to that end, though, if you have questions, discussion, comments, and I mean, no slight, I know Greg was out of the country and stuff, but try to come to that policy committee meeting so that we don't have to do it twice. That would be great.
I can't, sorry. I teach during that time, so
Okay.
I can't make policy meetings, right?
Well, thank you for the written comments, and
Yeah,
we will
okay.
take those into and then next we have the policies for adoption and recension. Dr. Myers, I checked with you, and we have no public comments of this, so that's nice. You must have done a good job. So those will be up for adoption next week. Those are the ones that have been out for 4 weeks. Moving on down to our consent agenda, the first thing we need to approve are field trips. Are there any questions about the overnight field trips?
Only that I appreciate the detail.
All of that, the detail on all of it is great.
Yeah. You can get turned down, or is this just?
Always.
Yeah.
All the
Okay.
time.
I mean, so we don't know if our Secretary DeVos has cut the program yet. I haven't heard anything, but there's so many other news coming out of Washington. So as far as we know, there is funding.
Yes, sir. At this time, yes.
And then number 4 is to approve the 21st Century Grant for elementary students. Are there any questions there? And number 5 is the same for the middle school students. No questions? Number 6 is for the high school students. Are there any questions about any of those 21st Century grants? And then number 7, approve the firewall purchase. Number 8, approve the local board governance training plan for fiscal year 19, not local school governance training plan, for our board of education. And
So,
then, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, for number
8.
8. So that is specifically for this board with regard to charter.
Yes.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
It's-
Great
it's-
question, thank you. for
Dr.
that.
Knott, thank you for the opportunity. There have been a number of different questions from this local board of education regarding the charter system and your role in functioning within a charter system. And so to that end, it's the recommendation of your board president and vice president to create time for you to discuss what's your role as the local board of education in functioning within a charter system. And so in that executive summary, you will note that the recommendation is to get some type of needs assessment from each one of you in terms of what are your questions, and from there we would devise a professional learning plan through Russ Cook and Sherry Gibney Sherman, who works for the Department of Education in advising charter systems to help you discuss and kind of unpack the issue of being a local board within a charter system.
And so this would be,
And I guess the last thing is, there's a requirement in the state of Georgia that veteran board members have to log a total of 9 hours, new board members 15 hours on an annual basis. So this would meet that requirement as well. So we, in deliberating and talking, we thought it would kill actually 2 birds with 1 stone by obviously addressing your governance learning that you have, the hours you have to log, but making it something that you want to learn and you can do it together.
so,
And it's a need.
and so
It's needed.
this would be down the road a little bit. Time-wise, this would,
Upon your approval, I think the time, you're asking a really interesting question. I think upon your approval, we will move as quickly as possible. We know that there's some transition with the board, but in talking with the board president and vice president, we also understand that there's some knowledge and insight that would be valuable to have before people pivot away. So we'll try to do it over the course of the entire year, where there's ample hours that will meet everyone's needs.
I attended a day and a half worth of local school governance team information the last 2 days. Should I I'm in the process of writing up my notes from that. Get that, I'm halfway done. Is that something I would, because I did it during this period, should I make a short presentation at the board meeting as well, or just post the information and
I would just share it with your colleagues.
I do want to get credit for one.
I think
That's great.
we're pleased that you win.
What's that one?
But can he actually get credit for that?
Yesterday.
It has
He
to
can't get credit for
be-
those hours.
Yeah, okay.
It was their second conference
Yes,
for
This Tuesday.
the local school governance.
it qualifies for the hours. I think Dr. Cook will be able to help you with
Yeah,
this.
no, that's fine, but it's not so much that credit, just the fact that I won. Just want to know.
I attended the state conference at UGA, 2 weeks ago, 6 hours credit, so I only need 3.
Yes, sir.
But we need your input on our trainings.
You gonna pay me?
All right, moving on down. Number 9, approve the LED site lighting installation for Bernie Harris and Coyle Middle Schools.
Madam Chair, I would only just add with this, I want to just recognize Ms. Vodika's work.
Yeah,
What we've tried to do with all of these executive summaries is that we've actually included the budget information that has been requested of board members. So we hope that this is addressing the issue. We've worked with board docs to see if we can actually insert it in the top portion of board docs. We can't. So we've infused it in other components of the reports, but now the information is there, not only in terms of how much is being requested, but from what legitimate line item object code is being pulled from the budget.
Well, and I just cannot tell you how much I love board docs. So thank you for the transition to that. It is like, this is
Great.
my language right here. It is exactly the way I like it.
quick
The
in
way I
that.
think. All right, and then the last 2 things on our agenda for next week is to approve the personnel recommendations and then adjourn a possible executive session. So there are
Madam Chair,
no additional questions.
Are we going to do a consent vote on the 9 items we went through?
Next week.
Well, no, here's what I'm saying.
And you can do it now.
we do it now.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. My apologies.
So we did.
And nothing got moved out of the consent agenda.
It did not. Nobody, yeah. We vote on it. I thought we voted
Well,
on
we
it.
vote on
So,
it. Six.
I think the way that you reviewed it, Madam Chair, you could now pose the question to the body if they are in agreement with consent for all items 1 through 9.
That's it, yeah, but we don't vote to approve the consent agenda until next week, so
Correct.
I'm sorry, we
Right.
were doing that. Yes, are there any objections to items 1 through 9 being placed on the consent agenda? All right, thank you all very much. I have nothing else, I don't think there's anything else, right?
No, ma'am.
All right, so we are adjourned. Woo-hoo. Thank you all for being patient with me.
Oh, no, you did. Do well.
Great.
You would not.